That is what American foreign policy is all about. Dominate, to influence the world. Some people think it's a good word, and some people think it's a bad word. It has a lot to do with outrage and forbearance, depending on which side of the coin you are on. This evening, we have a speaker who's asking a question. Have you ever been at a sporting event, restaurant, or night on the town and observed someone acting in a way that seemed odd or humorous to you, but was completely normal to them? In his speech, The Runaway Husband, Derrek will tell how differences in points of view can be humorous. The Runaway Husband, Derrek Long.
It was Memorial Day weekend. I was on my way to Idaho, Bruno Sand Dune State Park, to meet a couple siblings of mine and friends for a camp out. But it was a trepidatious weekend. Not because of where we were going or who I was going to be with, but how I was getting there. I was in my 1999 GMC Suburban, silver in color, but it was a diesel Suburban. The only diesel vehicle I ever owned. And I was about an hour outside of the Tri-Cities when my fuel gauge was rapidly going from F to E alongside a big plume of liquid behind me. Uh-oh. I was trepidatious because I've been having trouble with my fuel system. I had the pressure regulator replaced, a couple of the fuel injectors, and now I popped the hood and there's a hose spewing fuel all over the engine. Well, I managed to limp to Pasco, jerry-rigged some parts together, went to Idaho, had a splendid weekend, returned to Wenatchee, no problem. But I brought the truck into Global Car Care, where I had the work done previously. And I go up to the counter, but first, let me tell you about Global Car Care, for those of you who don't know about Global Car Care. It's like the Cadillac of mechanic shops in Wenatchee. If you need a good mechanic, I recommend them. But they have their mechanic bays on one side, super clean, spiffy mechanic shop. On the other side, they have a showroom floor with cars that have more chrome on them than paint. So I go up to the mechanic's counter. I'm telling Kevin there the problem about my weekend and how I wish we could just figure out this fuel problem. There's fuel all over. I managed to fix it. And I told him I was concerned about fuel on the engine, hot engine, fuel, combustion. I don't want a fire, so I purchased a portable fire extinguisher for my weekend, in case something happened, to keep the seat next beside you. It was then I looked over. I see the salesman, red in the face, laughing at me telling my story over the weekend. It was at that moment I realized, So to him, seeing my perspective and how I encountered and solved my problem with the fuel was humorous to him. And that got me thinking that from his perspective, what I did in my action was humorous. And isn't that true in other areas of our lives where we see the world and our problems that we encounter in a certain way, and we solve them based on our lens and our upbringing? Stephen Covey, in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, says we see the world not as it is, but as we're conditioned to see it, or as we are, end quote. Meaning, we all have these childhood upbringings, this lens, this perspective that is ingrained in us that we see the world through, which is different from person to person, based on culture, age, technology, or even your family origin, or even your personality. When I was in business school in Colorado, I'll tell you that story later. When I was in Idaho, I had this job working in a French fry factory. Yes, it was as awesome as it sounds. Crinkle cut, beer batter, hash browns, you name it, we could fry it up and have it for our lunch break. It was awesome. But not on your waistline. As part of the job, I had the privilege of giving tours to prospective employees or college students. I really enjoyed that part of the job, to tell them the process of potatoes, a French fry, all the equipment to the freezer. And after one of these tours with the college students, I get to the end of the tour and I ask the typical question, okay, does anybody have any questions on what you saw here today? And one of the students was excitedly, raising his hand, so I call on him and he says, how do you guys get your forklifts to run on water? Water? So I had to ask him some more questions. I prodded. Apparently, during the tour, we walked past the mechanic, the forklift shop, and you saw a mechanic pouring water into the forklift. Well, they were electric forklifts, and as you know, electric forklifts have lead-acid batteries, and lead-acid batteries require water as a dielectric barrier for the electrons to pass from cathode to anode. Well, I explained this phenomenon to the student, which he was a business major or something, but he never had that science class. And so he learned something that day, and I felt cool to pass that knowledge on to him. It wasn't about potatoes or the processing, but it was something simple as a battery, a lead-acid battery that you have in your vehicle today. Now back to my Colorado story. In business school, I lived with my brother and his wife, and they had an older gentleman, his name was Arnie, that lived next door. Now I suspect he had Alzheimer's or dementia because he could never tell my brother and I apart, even though we don't look anything alike, just based on the conversations we had. Well, my brother and his wife were expecting their first child. So when February 23rd came around, the baby was coming. I did like any good brother-in-law would do, and I was going to make myself scarce so they could have their family time. So I go outside and I'm going to shovel the 3 inches of freshly fallen snow to make way for the midwife to come, and I'm out there shoveling. Arnie comes over, and of course I have all this excitement. It's like, hey Arnie, today's the day, the baby's coming. He turns over to me, he's like, and I say, yeah, the baby's coming, I'm just going to shovel the snow, let the midwife come in, and I'm going to get out of here. And Arnie, puzzled, he looks at me, he's like, well, that seems about right. The baby comes and the husband leaves. It's one of those moments where it's easier just to smile and nod and walk away and try to explain the whole situation to him. Needless to say, my brother and sister-in-law, we all had a great humorous laugh recounting that conversation later. We all have upbringings, backgrounds, a lens that we see life through. It's our perspective, it's our point of view. And that's different from person to person. Those differences can cause us to learn new things. We can get a good laugh, or we can just not take ourselves so seriously.